Hey, friends. Welcome to the Divorce Clarity Studio on WGSN-DB, Going Solo Network Radio, Podcasts, and TV. I'm your host, Lisa Lisser, CEO and founder of LZL Coaching, a boutique coaching firm focused on divorce, relationships, and life transitions. Like many of you, my life has been shaped by many chapters, from my early career as an attorney to a nonprofit leader and community builder, to a Jewish educator and spiritual counselor. And now, today, I work as a divorce coach. I can look back and see how each chapter of my life quietly shaped the way I accompany people through life's most profound transitions. I created the Divorce Clarity Studio because I believe that divorce is about so much more than the legal process. It's about identity, relationships, parenting, finances, healing, and discovering who you really are. So whether you're considering divorce, in the middle of the process, learning to co-parent, or rebuilding your life afterward, my hope is simple: that you'll leave each conversation feeling a little less alone, a little more grounded, and a lot more confident in taking your next clarity-informed step. On today's show, we're going to talk about community. Divorce can be such a lonely process. You go from being a couple to being a single. Your group of friends may not understand your needs while you're going through divorce, and they may stop including you in group events or Saturday night plans. You might not want to talk about it with your people, or maybe you talk about it a little too much and people start to pull away, and all of a sudden you're feeling lonely and isolated. And that's what my guest and I are here to talk about today. Kristina St knows what it's like to hold everything together while everything is falling apart. For 15 years, she led teams through high-stakes public health and policy challenges, bringing calm to chaos and guiding people through uncertainty. But her own divorce as a working mother of two brought a different kind of overwhelm. Endless decisions, legal and financial complexity, co-parenting with someone she no longer really trusted, and the grief of letting go of the life she'd imagined. That experience became her calling. Seeing the gap between legal advice and emotional support, Kristina became a CDC Certified Divorce Coach to help women who are exactly where she once was. She blends her leadership background, coach training, and lived experiences to help clients stay grounded, keep their children at the heart, the center of all decisions, and move forward with clarity. Kristina's work reminds women that divorce isn't just an ending, it's a transition, and one that you don't have to navigate alone. And with that, welcome Kristina to the Divorce Clarity Studio.
Hi, Lisa. Thank you so much for having me today.
Oh, thanks for coming today. You know, we've met on a divorce networking platform called the Fresh Starts Network, the Fresh Starts Registry, which is the first divorce support registry that exists today. And we found that the people who choose to be listed as a resource, as a Fresh Start resource, really have something inside that comes from soul and comes from the heart. And when we began talking as two coaches who were trained by the CDC, we recognized that there was something about our work that coincided. And that was about groups. And how do we start a group? And what can we build to build that community that people so often feel is missing during their divorce process? So that's what we're going to talk about today. But before we get into the meat of it, Kristina, tell my audience, what's your story? How did you get into this divorce coaching business?
Sure. Well, actually, I just loved listening to your intro right now and how you talked about when you look back, you can see all the threads of sort of what got you to where you are today. And I just feel the complete same, right? My background is working in nonprofit organizations. I did public health and public policy for many years, where I learned a lot of skills. But then I went through my own divorce. And I found the process to be so overwhelming, so isolating, which is one of the, feelings that we're going to talk about today. And I just really struggled with how much I had to manage as a mom of 2 young kids with a full-time job and now a divorce. The other thing that I found is that I craved community so much during that time, right? I had so many other great communities, people, friends, family members who really cared about me, but they hadn't been through divorce. So they just didn't fully get it in the same way, even if, they're well-intentioned and there to support me. And so I just found myself seeking out other women who had gone through this, who had been in a similar position, because I felt like I didn't know what I didn't know. And I wanted to hear from someone who had been there. And I found the sort of reverse also happened, is that once word started spreading that I was navigating my own divorce, women were flocking to me, right? For that same experience, that same community and touch point. So it was just one of those stars aligned. Like, I just took all of these different experiences. I happened to come across the CDC coaching certification and said, you know what? Why not? Like, let me try this. If anything, it's going to help me learn and grow. And I fell in love with coaching. I've always been in a helping profession. So this felt like the right next chapter for me and where I was at.
Yeah, I'm so aligned with that. And I took a little bit longer of a journey because I had been a stay-at-home mom, but I was deeply involved in lay leadership in nonprofit. Mm-hmm. And so in that role, my job was to build community. My language, my vocabulary was community, and community building is personal. Mm-hmm. It's like one-to-one. It's not about the group itself. It's that each individual relationship layered together is what builds the community.
Absolutely.
And then I became a teacher. And so you build community in your classes and your cohorts. And I was teaching adults at first. So it was really interesting to see how those communities gelled together. And then I was in the classroom, writing curriculum and working with teachers and children. So again, each of those are smaller communities. And when you see the ties that organically grow in a group space, you recognize the power, especially for people who are feeling alone and isolated. Mm-hmm. So tell us a little bit about your experience with building community in divorce.
Yeah. So ever since I started my coaching, this was always one of my goals because of my experience and just knowing how much so many women crave a space, right, where they can be with others who have a similar story or just like can nod and understand without you having to explain yourself. Because I think that's one of the things we don't talk about enough or realize during divorce is how very exhausting it can be when you have to explain your whole way of thinking or explain the entire circumstances just to try to get someone to understand. And there's just so much power in someone who just gets it without you having to fully explain that. So for me, that was, one of the biggest instigators for me in wanting to move towards group programs and support groups for women. I just this past year have launched a program. It's called Your Divorce Village. Because, I think just like many other areas of our life, right, divorce takes a village to get through. And I want to help women and moms to build their own village and community. And one of the important things for me throughout this process is, what you just talked about was that sort of organic nature of the relationship building. And so my goal was to really create the space and provide, some level of facilitation and a container, right, to bring women in, to bring them together and facilitate that conversation. But my real goal is for them to have a community that lives beyond, the walls of the Zoom meeting that we had. And so just being able to structure it in a way to really facilitate and encourage participants to connect, to share their contact information, to make sure that they have all of that so they can check in with each other outside of our regular group meetings and to then build those relationships further, because, I'm probably going to be there for a season or maybe longer. And, whatever that length of time is fine. But I want them to build something that lasts and that they can take through, a longer period of time than when our groups are meeting.
Yeah, that's so important. You said something that's really essential, I think, to the power of group work. Like, you want them to build connections. So part of that is you give them the contact information so they could speak outside. But building connection is so important when you are feeling alone, when you are feeling lonely, because you feel like you don't really connect to anybody anymore.
Yeah.
And Brene Brown defines connection as feeling seen, heard, and that you matter. Like, those are like the three criteria of what connection is about. And when you're in a group of people who have had a similar experience, you know that they could see you. And that's what's so powerful. And you give yourself sort of the permission to be a little more vulnerable, to like reveal a little bit more, because it feels like maybe a safer space, right? And then you look in people's eyes and they are signaling to you that your story is important, what's happening to you is important, and you matter.
Yep.
And that's hard when you're looking at the court system or the lawyer that you have to talk to, or your soon-to-be ex who has a lot of anger and hostility in those eyes. And so finding the right group is so important.
Yeah.
So what are the sort of the key pieces of group work that you think people need to know so they feel a little less vulnerable walking in?
Yeah, that's such a good question, because it's scary still, right? And that's one of the things. So in my last group that was specifically for moms, I had a woman who was a part of the group, and on the second session, she shared with everyone. She said, I almost didn't show up last week. And she was so glad that she did, but it was still something that was unknown, even though, whatever my messaging was, and I was talking about, the group really resonated with her enough to sign up and say, okay, I need this right now. It can still be hard and scary to take that first step and to, like you said, like put out that vulnerability of even showing up.
Yeah.
Right. And so, I think, that first step is so important, and we miss that, is that give yourself, that permission to be brave and to just show up, right? If that's all that you can do, that is a great first step, to just let yourself be in this space. Maybe you're not ready to talk that first session. Maybe you just need to observe a little bit, whatever it is. But if you can get yourself there, I think it just takes down so much of the barriers and the fear that you might have building up in your mind.
Right. And so one of the things that you're describing is it's about flexing a new habit, right? Like, when we start habits, and this I learned by reading James Clear, who wrote Atomic Habits. Like, your habit can be micro. It could be microscopic almost, so that all you need to do to make that first connection is show up.
Yep.
Like, don't give yourself the weight of, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to show up and talk. What if all you need to do is show up and listen? And, for some people, they may not even want to listen. They may feel like they are holding enough baggage. They don't want to hold someone else's. But then just show up and take a seat.
Yep.
Each one, that's the beginning. But you can't start unless you actually start.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think that is why just, give yourself permission to show up if that's all you have capacity for. If you can't do anything else, just that starting place. And I love the Atomic Habits, and just like those micro steps, it's so much of what I work on with women throughout the whole process, right? It's just like what is that one next step that you are capable of taking? because it builds momentum and it gets you moving. And that's so important sometimes when you feel really stuck or paralyzed by the overwhelm.
Right, because so often we feel like we have to have everything figured out before we start.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know what is going to be that magic ingredient in the group that's going to make everyone gel, but maybe it's just your presence. Maybe your impact is what is going to change, because people feel good when they support other people. They might not look at going to a support group because I need help. That might be scary. But if you go to a support group and you find you actually can give voice to another person's fear and help them, then all of a sudden the group is giving you something you never expected.
It's so funny that you said that, because that actually, me being the one facilitating the group, was one of the things that I hadn't fully anticipated, was how much these women got out of helping each other, right? It wasn't just about like they each had space to share their story or their challenges, but it was so powerful to see them showing up for one another and validating each other. And we had like a wide array of, life experiences, of circumstances. And even with that, they themselves would pull out these common themes, these common threads that they had, and could say, my situation is different, but I know exactly how you feel because of X, Y, and Z, right? And then being able to find those themes, to be able to validate each other and their experiences and fears and hopes and whatever was coming up that day, was so much more powerful, I think, than me doing it.
Yeah.
And seeing that, like, the only word I can think to describe it, was really magical to see like that just like cross support from those who are showing up for each other's and not just themselves.
Yeah, that's really an unexpected collateral benefit.
Yeah.
Right? An unexpected collateral benefit. We're about halfway through, so we're going to take a quick 30-second break. When we come back, we're going to talk about what actually happens in the space of a group divorce coaching session. So with that, we'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And we're back with Kristina St, a CDC Certified Divorce Coach, and we're talking about group divorce coaching. So when we left, we were talking about the magic that happens when the group organically starts lifting each other up and what that feels like. So what I wanted to talk to Kristina about was like, what are the seeds that you plant, the structure, the curriculum of the divorce support group that leads people toward that power?
Yeah. So my personality, I'm an over preparer, I think I would say, but which is fine. What I would do for my support groups is I make sure that I have a topic ready to go each week, and to help sort of, get rid of some of that fear of showing up, I make sure that I send out that topic in advance, and I always send 3 prompt questions. So these are just a little something for the participants to think about if they want to ahead of time. These are not, obligatory email. Show up if you can just show up. But if you're one of those people who needs to feel like they want to be a little bit prepared, or maybe, these women are busy working moms, and so often running from meetings or doing something else and then hopping on, this support group in the middle of the day. And so it's hard to kind of shift your brain. And so I think having these topics in advance, just to help guide some of their thinking and their processing, and then having just really simple, open-ended prompts to get them started. I mean, that was one way that I think that sort of a little bit of structure was really helpful. And I always had like an educational component ready to go for my last group that was never needed. These ladies were ready to jump right in, which is also wonderful. This is your space, make it what you want it to be. But I would have that just in case folks needed a little bit more of a warm up and maybe it needed some time to think or process and learn. The other piece that I did from the very beginning is I put together a set of guiding principles for us. And I wish I had them all right in front of me, but were just a set of principles that we all agreed to ahead of time on how we were going to show up and how we were going to together shape this space. And so, there's no judgment in this, right? It's trying to, even though divorce is really hard, sort of trying to maintain some level of positivity within the group, right? So allowing for that validation, the uplifting, also listening, right? Just being able to listen and not necessarily provide advice unless it's explicitly asked for.
Right. So you have protocols, right? So that people know what to expect.
Right.
And I think that in a group, which may feel very risky for someone to walk into, especially the first time, they need to have some expectations so they feel like they're coming into a safe space.
Yes.
So let's go back to the beginning of what those sort of criteria or elements of your coaching space look like. You start with a topic and you said questions, maybe some prompts. So give us an example of the kinds of topics that you prepare your women with.
Yeah. So, one of them was this group was particularly for moms. So we had a couple of weeks that were focused specifically on parenting. And, a prompt could be, what is a challenge that you're facing this week with your co-parent? What is something you're not giving yourself enough credit for? Right. So also having them think about the things that they are doing, right? And how they are showing up and not just the challenges that they're having, because they're showing up in so many ways.
Yes.
One of the topics I love covering both in coaching and just in the groups are around the grief and sort of letting go of that life that you thought you're going to have. Because I think it's not always thought about or talked about until you start experiencing it in your divorce. It's not just this grief of, leaving this relationship and this partner, right? It's also disconnecting yourself from this future that you maybe had visioned out in your mind. And so what are you doing now to help yourself process that grief and to build a different vision for your future?
Yeah, I had a whole podcast on divorce grief and how sometimes we don't even give ourselves permission to grieve because especially if we asked for it, then we must want it. But sometimes we ask for it because it's the only thing that's going to keep us afloat. And we never wanted it. We just needed it. And that's a hard thing to come to terms with. Especially when you've lived in a world that what you did when you grew up is you've met your love and you got married and you had kids and they went to college and then you went off into the sunset together. And divorce is not on that timeline. So what do we do when we're grieving our hopes and dreams? That's a big thing.
It's really big.
Yeah, that I'm sure can have like a really fulsome conversation. What about sort of the practical, tactical?
Yeah, we would get into logistics some weeks, right? whether it's thinking through, because everyone was also at a different stage in their process. And I think one of the things we were talking about earlier is how others who might be a little bit further ahead in their process, can sort of help pull someone else forward by sharing their experience and let them know the steps to get there. And so we definitely had conversations around schedules and logistics when it came to kids. How do you manage the time, right? Both when you are the solo parent, but also what do you do at that time when you don't have your kids?
Yeah.
Sort of emptiness, the quiet can feel really loud when that is a new experience for you. And so just even voicing, how are you managing that? What are the strategies that, each woman is using during times like that to help themselves cope?
Yeah. I mean, it's so true, because we're always, as parents of 1, 2, 3 kids, we're 4 or 5, whatever, we're so used to the noise of the household, right? The household is always a buzz, and we may not, it may be overwhelming, it may be so much stress, but it's the energy that we are used to. And then when the house is quiet and you don't have that energy, it's easy to spin.
Yep.
So what can how can the group work help you sort of surrender into your solitude? That solitude is okay. It's not a judgment.
Yeah.
And so often we're judging ourselves, right?
So often.
So often that inner critic, why does that have to sort of talk in our ears all the time?
I know.
But the power of the group, we can talk about the inner critic and how that is like interfering with us reaching peace. What are some of the activities that you do in the group?
Activities, it's really just for my past groups have been about sharing. I've been really fortunate to have groups who are very active and participatory. And so I haven't actually needed to do any activities outside. And usually we don't even move past like the first question. The conversation flows. So I've been very fortunate to have groups like that. One ending activity that I will say is I have, and Lisa, you will know this deck very well. I have a color deck. They're like an oracle tarot deck, nothing too woo-woo, but I like to have something, because how do you wrap something up like this, right?
Yeah.
There's no perfect way to, tie it up with a bow or to end the conversation, especially when it gets really heavy or, we're covering a lot of topics and there's so much there. So what I found was a really great grounding exercise to end on, is both asking, like, what are you going to do for yourself this week, right? Because we need to be able to fill our cups to keep going. And so that's a nice accountability measure for when we come back. We can check in with one another on whether or not we were able to do that. But the second piece was I would use this color deck. And so I would shuffle the cards and I would pick someone and they would tell me when to stop, and I would draw a card and then just do the very short little reading. And it was just a nice way, because with cards like that, you take from it what resonates with you. And so it was a nice way to sort of have, I don't know, just some closure, but a way for an ending to resonate with everyone in their own unique way, and for them to take out of this session and like reflect on this session what they needed to.
Yeah. I love that. Like, we've been in groups where we've used the color cards, and sometimes the color cards, like when the color that gets pulled is black, we're like, ooh, is that going to be a negative for us? But, we live in both and, right? We have the joy, we have the hardness, we have the heaviness. And getting something that is, let's say it's black and it says loneliness. Like, maybe that's something for us to think about. What is our loneliness there to teach us?
Yeah.
Right? It's a signal. It's a signal that something else is needed. So there can be power in acknowledging the signals that are out there.
Yeah.
And working together in group, you know that you have someone you can lean on when you're really struggling. And, I'd love to know when you start collecting data, how people are using their contact information. Like after the group, are they staying in touch? Or in some cases, it's just for a season,
Right.
right? They need that kind of support for a moment.
Yep.
And then they get through that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be really powerful.
What's that saying that people come into our lives and they're here either for a reason, a season, or a lifetime, right? I feel like that resonates so much. Sometimes you, in this really hard season, that's when you need someone, and that's when you connect, and it doesn't always move forward. And sometimes you make lifelong friendships, right? In these harder seasons. I do have one data point for you. So from this last group, one of the participants was also one of my one-on-one coaching clients. And so I get to see her regularly, which is amazing. And she really connected so well with one of the other participants, and they don't live that far away. So she has kept me updated, saying that they've stayed in touch and have been texting. And the other woman had invited her to join her, on Sundays, which was now her kid-free day, if she wanted to come and sit by the pool and they could get together. And that was just so heartwarming, right? Because that is the goal for me, is to help them build connections that live beyond our sessions.
Yeah. And once you're connected in that session, in that group, whether you see each other again or not, or whether you randomly bump into each other 5 years from now, you still have that connection from that moment when you needed community and that community lifted you up. So in thinking about the power of groups, what would be like the takeaway you'd want our audience to know so that they would feel safer walking into a group space?
Yeah, no, there's so many reasons. But I will so one of the slight language tweaks or, that I use is that I don't call my groups a safe space. I call them a brave space.
Okay.
And I think that, because I can't guarantee, right, anyone's emotional safety. We do our best, right, to outline this, but you're showing up and being brave, both for yourself and for others. And I don't know that this is exactly answering your question, but I just think going through divorce, whether you're choosing this path or it's been chosen for you, takes a lot of courage and a lot of bravery. And to me, these groups are something that you can do for yourself.
Yeah.
Too often, especially women, we put ourselves last. And we put everyone else first, and then we try to pour from an empty cup, and that does not go over well, right? We get burnt out, we get overwhelmed, we become paralyzed by everything that we have to do. And so I guess my message is just allow yourself to put yourself first. It doesn't mean that you're putting anyone else second. It doesn't mean that you're not also putting your kids first, but your kids need you to be in a good place. And I think that having a community, by building friendships, connections, getting that validation, it's an investment in yourself and your future and your well-being. And I think that's so important during this time.
And that reaps so many rewards for everyone else in your life. Because if you are feeling more grounded, more healed, stronger, braver, then your kids will feel it too. And the anxiety will shift. And there's so much power in that. So thank you so much, Kristina. This was a great, great conversation. How can my audience find you?
Sure. You can find me at Kristina St Coaching.com. St Cyr is STCYR. Or you can reach out to me at Kristina St Coaching.com. But thank you so much for having me, Lisa. This was so nice to talk to you today.
Yes, it was great. Thank you so much. And to my audience, thanks for listening to the Divorce Clarity Studio. If you like what you've heard, please subscribe, like, and follow us. We'll be on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, but also on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all the places that you will get your podcasts. And if someone you know could use this episode, please share it. Remember, you're not alone, and you can walk with a guide on the side. I'm Lisa Lisser, and you can find me at lzlcoaching.com. See you next time.